Something terrifying is happening in Baldwin County, Alabama. Immigration raids aren't just targeting people here illegally, but they're actually grabbing people who are here legally in the United States and putting them on immigration ICE holds. Law enforcement agencies in Alabama are grabbing people who are here legally in the United States, charging them with criminal offenses, and putting them on a deportation hold, which means that they could likely get deported before they get a chance to defend the criminal charges placed against them. They're deporting people who are here legally, who haven't committed a crime, but are just being charged of a crime. What's happening in Baldwin County, Alabama is absolutely terrifying, and it only highlights what I've been telling you guys for a long time on this YouTube channel. It doesn't matter if you're here legally or not. They don't want you here because of your race. Has nothing to do with your legal status. Even if you're legally in the United States, if you are caught driving in Alabama, if they can get their hands on you, they're going to accuse you of a crime, put an ICE deportation hold on you, and before you have a chance to defend your case, you're going to be deported. I have never seen people's arrest mugshots look more crushed than the people you're going to see on today's video. These are individuals who came to the United States and did things the right way, but despite the fact they tried to do things the legal way, they're finding that their American dreams are being crushed by a grave injustice. Law enforcement agencies in Alabama don't care if you're legal or not. They don't want you there based on your race and ethnicity. Laws like HB 56, my personal experiences in Alabama, and many people who have came forward and shared their experiences of living in this state as migrants more than well manifest that in the state of Alabama, it isn't about your legal status, it's about your race and ethnicity. And unfortunately, many people who believe they're doing things the right way are putting themselves in a very dangerous predicament by residing in the state of Alabama. They assume because their legal status that they're going to be okay, but they don't realize the dangers that abound in this state. We're going to look at some arrest records from the last few months in Alabama. All of these arrests are from Baldwin County, and it's kind of terrifying, the notion that it doesn't seem like everybody here is illegally in the United States breaking the law. It seems by these charges that these individuals got jammed up on purpose, and perhaps some of these people are suffering and living great injustices. Alabama has two coastal counties on the Gulf of Mexico. On one side is Mobile County, run down and depressing. Like something out of a 1970s horror movie, they hang tires off a tree to mark the segregation line. The African American community lives in housing projects and some of the most run-down, decrepit neighborhoods that exist anywhere in the United States. On the other side of Mobile Bay sits Baldwin County, where Alabama's elite and wealthy people enjoy the views of the Gulf of Mexico along beach towns and vacation areas. It is here in Baldwin County, Alabama, where we have seen the most persistent immigration arrests of anywhere in the United States as of 2025. Alabama's governor said that she was going to make America safe again. Now, I lived in the state of Alabama, and it's one of the most terrifying places to live in America. Birmingham, Alabama's homicide rate is 4 times higher than Chicago. That pretty much sums up how dangerous Alabama is. After all, only Mississippi and Louisiana, right next door, are more dangerous by homicide rate. But being an immigrant in Alabama is far more dangerous than being a regular citizen, since law enforcement refuses to protect immigrants in the state from attacks from armed robbers, even though those immigrants may be U.S. citizens. In the case of me, I decided to leave the state of Alabama for my safety. And that's me being a white, green-eyed Hispanic U.S. citizen, paid off house, paid off cars, and American wife. Being in Alabama as a migrant was just too dangerous because of the racism that exists. Law enforcement refusing to investigate any case if the victim is not a white or black Alabamian. 2 years ago, I made a video in Spanish that reached over 400,000 people warning Latinos about the dangers of living in Alabama. The overwhelming majority of the comments were Hispanics saying that they live in Alabama and everything's gone wonderful for them. But since then, about 11 Latinos have been killed in Alabama in armed robberies, including an infamous case out of Montgomery where 3 people were killed to rob a corner store. This is how blatant criminals have got when targeting Hispanics in Alabama, knowing well and all that law enforcement isn't going to investigate when Hispanics and Latinos are the victims. I warned them and they didn't listen. Now they're suffering the consequences since ever since I made that video, there's been an influx of Latinos to these places in Alabama. Despite the warning that this was a dangerous place that they shouldn't be in, a lot of them went there and this is what's happening to them. Despite Hispanics being a small minority in Baldwin County, Alabama, they're starting to make up a significant percentage of the arrests. This is Brian Guzman. He was picked up in Baldwin County just yesterday, being held for the U.S. Marshals. Videos have been circulating on Facebook and social media of the countless immigration raids at construction sites throughout Baldwin County, Alabama. Just last week, Nicolas Moreno was arrested for DUI and placed on an immigration hold. You're probably wondering, hold on, Jose, wait a minute. We've been watching these videos from Florida, and the overwhelming majority of people that are being arrested are because they don't have a valid driver's license. Already, the first 2 people we've seen here are facing real criminal charges. Now, Mr. Moreno wasn't arrested or charged without having a valid driver's license. He had a valid driver's license. He was charged with a DUI and placed on an immigration hold. What's interesting about this situation is he probably isn't illegal because he has a valid driver's license. Otherwise, he would have been charged with no valid driver's license, and he wasn't. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's no accountability from law enforcement in Alabama. You're not going to pull a Freedom of Information Act on these guys. You're not going to get any videos from these guys. Nothing. This is Alabama. For all we know, this guy could have a valid driver's license, could be legally in the United States, got charged with a DUI even though he did nothing wrong, put on an immigration hold for the DUI even though the DUI may have not even happened. He's not even going to have enough time to contest the DUI because the immigration hold will take effect first. He'll get deported before he has a chance to defend the DUI case. And this is what I told people in that video that reached over 400,000 views, that in Alabama, don't think because you're legal, they're not going to jam you up and screw up your life. They got this guy jammed up on a DUI deportation, even though he didn't get charged with no valid driver's license. For all we know, this guy could be a permanent resident in the United States, getting ready to do his U.S. citizenship. He ain't got nothing wrong going on, and he's going to get deported. And this is exactly what I told people in that video about Alabama. It doesn't matter if you're doing something right or wrong, they're going to jam you up. If you've been watching my series on immigration arrests in Florida, you already know by these 2 charges the way they're coming at you in Alabama. In Florida, about 90% of the people that are getting the immigration holds are getting jammed up for a no valid driver's license. That means law enforcement detained them in traffic, found out they didn't have a valid driver's license. In Alabama, they're going straight into construction sites. They're searching people without warrants. They're going into properties without warrants. There's absolutely no due process for these people in Alabama, and there's nothing preventing these people from jamming somebody up. Even though they may not be illegal, they're going to put them in a spot where they're going to get deported. These are kangaroo courts in Alabama. No lawyer, nothing is going to save you from the grips of these people. When I lived in Elmore County, Alabama, I went to the Millbrook Police Department and I told them that I had been a victim of a crime. Now, I'm a U.S. citizen. My wife is an American-born person. My house is paid off cash. Everything is legit. I even got my Alabama concealed carry permit. Even though all my stuff is on point, they told me that I couldn't report a crime in Alabama because I was an illegal immigrant, a Mexican who was invading their country. If that's how they did me, a U.S. citizen married to a white woman, how do you think they're going to do these people on temporary status with a permanent residency? Yeah, they're legally in the United States, but do you think these people in Alabama aren't going to jam them up and screw up their lives over there? And the crazy part is I warned them. 400,000 people in Spanish saw that video. That means practically every Hispanic person in Alabama saw that video twice. I warned them that if they moved to Alabama, they were going to get jammed up. Over 1,000 comments, overwhelmingly people saying that they're Hispanic and they live in Alabama and that they're not worried about anything happening to them. They're starting to find out they should have listened. Diaz Gomez had 5 failure to appear court hearings for traffic violations. They put him on an immigration hold. Who knows if they even actually warned him about this? They could have just written up some warnings and then got him and say, hey man, you've been dodging us for a while now. Yo, I've lived in Alabama. I know how you people move. You're not going to pull the wool over my head or my audience. We already been watching how you guys move, so this is not a surprise to us. Don't act like you're shocked to hear that we know how you operate. I know how you people in Alabama move. Go in the comment section right now. You're going to see all the people from Alabama. Hey, he's a liar. He's a liar. He's a liar. And some of them don't even know how to spell liar, right? So they spell it wrong. And again, if you've been watching my YouTube channel for a while, you know how criminal charges work. And this whole thing about 5 traffic citations leading to an immigration arrest, that's not the way a normal criminal record, this is not like anything you've ever seen before. These are all machinations. Like, these are all weird Alabama stunts. So far, all 3 of these arrests leave you scratching your head. This isn't like they caught a guy with no valid driver's license so he gets deported, like would happen in anywhere in America. These are all machinations. These are all very strange layouts for these people getting arrested. You could be legally in Alabama, nothing illicit, you're in the United States legally, get pulled over, they'll fabricate some weird charges, and you're out of there. These people don't work with due process. Me with green eyes, you saw how they moved on me. How do you think they're moving with these brown homies? Just 3 days ago, Oscar Orlando, he may be Cuban or Colombian, judging by his appearance. He was charged with possession of a forged instrument, maybe a fake document, for example, domestic violence, and he was put on an immigration hold. Every single Hispanic being arrested in Baldwin County, Alabama, is getting an immigration hold. It doesn't matter if they're here legally or not. If they get arrested, they're getting an immigration hold. The state of Alabama made a law called HB 56 a long time ago, stating that for immigration arresting purposes, they don't need a warrant, they don't need due process, nothing. They can just see you, arrest you, and that's all there is to it. There's no due process, there's no legality, there's no civil rights. This HB 56 thing went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the states' rights issue came up again where they said, hey, can't really get involved, but it's definitely an unconstitutional practice. Dude, I don't know if you caught this. These 4 people that we just went over are probably not illegal. Some of them may be, but not all of them are illegal. Some of these people are legally in the United States. They're being charged of a crime and deported before they even get a chance to contest it. It's a complete lack of due process in Alabama. And I don't know if you've caught this, but a forged instrument is a paper trail. The guy with the traffic citations is a paper trail. These are not like circumstantial evidence type crimes. These are just allegation type crimes. These people are not going to get a chance to a fair trial. They're going to get a deportation hold and a deportation on charges that they may not even have to stand up in court against. This is the state of Alabama. And these people made a massive mistake with their future, going to a state that was inclined to deport them with no due process. Many times these charges could easily be fabricated. There's nothing to stand on here. These people are in a world of trouble. Their decision to move to Alabama was a bad idea. Like I said, I'm a U.S. citizen Hispanic, and I faced incredible problems in Alabama with legality, even though I'm a U.S. citizen. So how do you think these permanent residents and people on temporary statuses are going to fare in a state that doesn't care if you're legal or not? They hate immigrants. They're racist. Don't you freaking get it? These people in Alabama do not care if you're legal or not. I'm a U.S. citizen, and they told me I was illegal and refused to take my case. How do you think these people are going to fare in Alabama? People have reported over 50 individuals with video evidence being detained in Baldwin County, but we're only seeing like 5 or 6 of them through their county jail. The overwhelming majority are masked men who claim to be ICE that are going to construction sites with no warrants, nothing, and just masked men grabbing people and putting them in trucks. Do you think that there aren't gangs in Alabama right now wearing masks, kidnapping people for ransom, pretending like they're ICE and immigration agents? Do you think this isn't happening right now in Alabama? What makes you think that in a state where there's no due process and no protection at all for migrants, that right now there aren't masked men going around Alabama taking people for ransom, acting like they're immigration agents? There's no telling what's happening to these people in Alabama. A lot of them, it's a dangerous place to be as a Hispanic, and I documented that very thoroughly when I lived there. So imagine what's happening to these people right now. It's an absolutely dangerous situation they're in, and I warned them about the predicament that they were putting themselves in. And you know, what's happening right now in the United States is a very scary time to be an immigrant, even if you're legal. But being illegal, or even if you have a temporary status or you're a permanent resident, despite the fact that you're illegal, that isn't going to protect you, because their intention is to get rid of you. And their mode of operation is complete impunity, complete lack of due process. They have the ability, the intention, the desire, the want to ruin your life, and they're going to do it. You may have heard a while back, there was a sheriff in Alabama, in Etowah County, who used the money that was used for feeding the inmates to buy himself a house on the beach in Florida. And he was actually questioned over it, and the courts in Alabama determined that there's absolutely nothing wrong with the sheriff using the money that was meant to feed the inmates to buy himself a beach house in Florida. He's still there, even though he stole public funds that were supposed to be for the inmates to buy himself a beach house in Florida. In Alabama, these people do whatever they want. They don't understand due process. They have power, and they do whatever they want. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about the federal government. They don't care about nothing. These people do whatever they want. There's no due process. There's no law and order. How do you think Alabama has become as dangerous as it is? In Birmingham, Alabama, the homicide rate is 4 times higher than Chicago. In Montgomery, it's 2 times higher than Chicago. How do you think a state becomes this freaking dangerous? Do you think that law enforcement in this state isn't scarier than the criminals? Last month, Jorge Luis was detained in Baldwin County, Alabama. Look, he's crying in the photo. He was charged with DUI. Again, he wasn't charged with no valid driver's license. He was charged with DUI, and he was placed on an immigration hold. Now, you may wonder, this is the second person in Baldwin County that's being arrested for DUI, even though he had a valid driver's license and is getting an immigration hold. Does that make sense to you? If you've been watching my entire series on all the immigration arrests in Florida, does it make sense to you that they've caught 2 people who have a valid driver's license, who are getting a DUI, who just happen to also get an immigration hold even though they got a valid driver's license? It doesn't check out. They're systematically grabbing people who have a valid driver's license, accusing them of a DUI, deporting them before they even get a chance to hold up their case. If you were to request a body cam footage for these people, you would never get it. Look at this. This is the second person in Baldwin County charged with a DUI that isn't charged with no valid driver's license getting a deportation hold. You can see this guy's crying in the photo. Have you ever seen that in the hundreds of photos of arrests for deportations that we have gone through on our channel? Have you ever seen somebody crying? Why do you think this guy's crushed? Why do you think he's crying? Because he figured out something really wrong just happened to him. This doesn't you've never seen anybody crying on an immigration arrest photo. Most people who are getting deported, they kind of understand the deal they're in. This guy's crushed. They did this guy dirty. Look, Collier County, Florida has the town of Immokalee. Every single day they arrest 4 or 5 people with no valid driver's license. Have you been to the town of Immokalee and seen how many people there drink? Do you think there's more people drinking in Baldwin County, Alabama that are illegal, or in Immokalee, Florida? If you've been to both of these places, you know the answer. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't check out. This is not logical. In Immokalee, Florida, where people are poor migrant workers in fields, they're definitely drinking. You don't see that many DUI arrests in their community. What makes you think that in Baldwin, Alabama, where there isn't a drinking vibe, you're getting all these guys charged with DUIs and deportation orders, and they're not even charged with not having a valid driver's license? These are guys who were legally here, got pulled over by a cop, accused of a DUI, put it on immigration hold, and they're not going to have a chance of a due process hearing. These guys are getting screwed bad. Manolo Hernandez was picked up with charges for the U.S. Marshals. You can see his eyes are watery too. Now, U.S. Marshals usually go after very violent criminals. You're usually talking like kingpin status type people. These are just regular run-of-the-mill guys. These aren't gangsters. So they're using the U.S. Marshals, which they could be using to try to stop the drug problem they have in Alabama, or all the violent crime, or all the murders, or all the gangs, or all the murders on the street that are being perpetrated by inmates within the jail that are released by corrupt officials. All you have to do is go on social media with the word Alabama in prison, and you'll see that people in the Alabama prison system have complete social media lives of cell phones, weapons, guns, alcohol, anything they want inside the Alabama prison system. This is on social media for everybody to see. But they're using the U.S. Marshals not to tackle the corruption, violence, and homicide in their state, but to go after a guy that's here illegally. This is how you understand why Alabama is so dangerous. Why are these states like Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana just crime crap holes? Why is the homicide rate in Mississippi higher than the homicide rate in Chicago? Why? Because they don't use their resources to go after criminals. They use their resources to get personal vendettas off. Can you imagine, with as much violence and homicide as exists in Alabama, that they're using the U.S. Marshals to make immigration arrests? It's pathetic. They just like to jam up people in Alabama. There's no due process. Look, this guy's an American. Let me show you guys what they did to an American. Now, if they do this to an American, what do you think they're going to do to somebody from another country? Look at these charges. You've never seen this anywhere else in America. In fact, this is considered double jeopardy. Keith Hodges is an American in Alabama. He was charged with fleeing and eluding, but they still went ahead and charged him with running red lights, speeding, improper turn signal, passing without a turn signal. Look at the onslaught of traffic infractions that they gave this guy attached to his fleeing and eluding. Now, if you're fleeing and eluding from law enforcement, you're going to blow a red light or two. That's kind of the idea of fleeing and eluding. But they went ahead, and despite the fact fleeing and eluding is a charge that already covers all those categories of dangerous activities, and they individually charged him again for all the things he did while fleeing and eluding. Charges that are amounting to like, how many? Let's count these. 15 charges as enhancements to his fleeing and eluding, charges that every single person who flees and eludes would already commit, but they wanted to jam him up. They wanted to say, here's a guy with 15 charges. This is what they do to their own American people. Now, you guys may remember a while back, I did a video in Mill Village outside of Sylacauga, Alabama, and the people from Alabama in that video, I'm not going to go ahead and link it on today's video because I don't want to bring any bad things to those people down there, but they're really great people. They're just in a really messed up situation in Alabama. But in that video, if you saw it, you're my subscriber, you know what I'm talking about. This is how they treat their own fellow Alabamian. So how do you think they're going to behave towards somebody they don't like from another country? While living in Alabama, I heard one of the most impactful statements that I've ever heard in my lifetime. I was talking to an African-American friend who told me, if we don't love ourselves, how can we love you? And this perfectly highlights the mindset of people in Alabama. If they don't treat their own people right, how can they treat you, an outsider, with dignity and respect? It's not going to happen. We don't love ourselves. How can we love you? Now, Baldwin County, Alabama is considered one of these fastest growing counties in the United States that everybody's moving to. And everybody says, well, they got great safety analytics and blah, blah, blah. And I'm telling you guys, these people do not deserve your presence. You do not deserve to be put around them. They're a different category of people that you don't want to be around. They don't believe in due process. They don't believe in the Constitution. They don't even believe in the United States. These people are still Southern segregationists who believe in separating from the Union. They never wanted to be part of the United States. They never wanted to be part of the Union. As far as they're concerned, in their minds, they are still part of the split South. They don't even consider themselves like the rest of Americans. They don't want to be like the rest of Americans. If it were up to them, they would still have slaves. They not like us. They don't believe in the Constitution. They don't believe in the Union of the United States. They don't believe in due process. They don't believe in law and order. They believe in Southern segregation, hate, and the ability to do whatever they want. They believe in law enforcement being authoritarian, kind of nobody can stand up against them. And this is kind of a crazy idea because this is like kind of what happens in North Korea, where you can't contest the law. You can't evaluate the law. And if you look at the U.S. Constitution, the U.S. Constitution doesn't restrict the people. It restricts government. This country was built on the notion that the people have the right to contest and examine their government. You get pulled over in Alabama and you don't say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, to a police officer, and they'll knock the teeth out of your mouth. This isn't the way the United States is meant to be. In the United States, we're not an authoritarian regime, but this is the type of government that Alabama has. And many times the laws that they implement in their state go all the way up to the Supreme Court. And they always say, this is a states' rights issue. In other words, they're going to do whatever they want in their state, regardless of the Constitution, regardless of everything else that happens in the United States. They not like us. And to the people that are considering moving to Baldwin County, Alabama, the real estate laws in this state are another gimmick. But again, you can warn people as many times as you want to. Some people are just going to find out for themselves. So to the people that tell me, well, Baldwin County, it's not like the rest of Alabama. No, it's still in Alabama. And in fact, it's even more dangerous than the rest of Alabama, because this is the part of Alabama where all those corrupt, crooked people live. Once they're getting money and they've extorted enough people and they've embezzled enough people from local offices and stolen enough from their communities, they get themselves a little beach house down there on the water in Baldwin County. In my opinion, Baldwin County is even more dangerous than the rest of Alabama, because the people that make Alabama dangerous, this is where they live. This is where the absolute scariest criminals in Alabama live, because it's the nicest part of Alabama. This is where all the people in local governments and sheriff's offices and all the most dangerous people that have made the state of Alabama a living crap hole for their people, this is where those people reside. These are the most dangerous people in Alabama. It may not be directly dangerous in their community, but all of the horrible things that happen in Alabama are happening because of the rich people that live in this county. They're the ones who orchestrate the disaster that is the state of Alabama. This guy right here didn't even get the photo uploaded. I'm pretty sure they beat the crap out of him. It's probably the reason there's no photo. Juan also getting the U.S. Marshals. This is what's happening in Alabama right now, Baldwin County. They're going all out against people that are there legally and illegally. And let me just be clear on that they're not just going after illegals. They're going after legals as well. Look, to be exact, there's nothing wrong with government agencies detaining people that are illegal and deporting them. It's happening throughout the entirety of the United States. There's nothing wrong with deporting somebody who's here illegally. The problem here is that it looks like they're arresting people and putting them on immigration holds who have a legal status. Keep in mind, you got two people here that are being charged of a DUI, but they're not being charged with no valid driver's license. Do you really think these guys were driving under the influence, or do you think it's just a little exaggeration of the reality to get these guys deported? After all, if there's an ICE immigration hold in the state of Alabama on somebody, do you really think they're going to get a fair chance to stand up and prove that they weren't drinking and driving under the influence? Do you think they'll be deported before they even get a chance? I think the answer is pretty straightforward. We all know how that's going to play out. A few of these other guys are being arrested, detained, and put on immigration hold for what look like paper trail crimes, which at the end of the day isn't exactly a deportable offense. Somebody could be legally in the United States, end up with some traffic infractions, little things. That's not the type of thing you get deported for. So there are definitely some red flags with these arrests in Baldwin County, Alabama. And this is absolutely terrifying for the people that decided to, they came to the United States legally. They tried to do things the right way, and now they're being jammed up under some Jim Crow law type crap. Typical Alabama behavior. It's very dangerous with the political, racist, hateful climate that exists in the United States to be a minority in a place like Alabama. Even if you're a U.S. citizen like me, living in these places is far too dangerous. Their intention is to ruin your life. It's their goal, and they're gonna find a way to jamming you up. One of the reasons I left Alabama was because of my safety. In the state of Florida, the notion of getting arrested, detained, or me having to hurt somebody to defend myself never existed. Doesn't happen. But in Alabama, you're constantly being put in situations where your safety is at danger and where the only option that you have to defend yourself is intimidation. Living in Alabama as a Hispanic U.S. citizen was a nightmare. I can't even imagine people with temporary statuses and permanent residencies are living through in this state when the law that wants to get rid of them knows that all they have to do is charge them with a crime, put an ICE immigration hold on them, and before they're even able to review the criminal charges, they're already being deported. So these are people that came to the United States legally, tried to do things the right way, but they're still getting jammed up. You can see by these guys' arrest photos deep down in their eyes that they are just crushed. They came to the United States the legal way. They tried to do things the right way. They weren't breaking the law, and somebody ruined their future for them. These are just some of the injustices that are undoubtedly going to take place as thousands of people that are in the United States are being arrested for being here illegally. Many of the ones that are here legally are facing the sentiment, the intention. These people don't care about legality. Look in Ohio. They're blaming the Haitians for eating cats. You know how many people in Ohio smoke drain cleaner with freaking battery acid? So at least cat's meat, even if they were eating cats in Ohio, at least the cat's meat. There's nothing edible about freaking drain cleaner and battery acid. So here's somebody who smokes battery acid and drain cleaner, but they take offense at somebody eating meat. At least a cat's meat. At least a cat's edible. It's meat. It may not be your type of meat, but it's meat. You're smoking drain cleaner. It's a hypocrisy. And the problem is that the sentiment doesn't come from a love of legality and love and order, and a love of law and order. It comes from hate. It's anti-Hispanic sentiment. So undoubtedly, many of these police officers, they're not driven by law and order. They're not driven by due process. They're driven by hate. And you know, the overwhelming majority of people who are going to get deported knew that they were in the United States illegally. Every once in a while, somebody came on temporary status and things just didn't work out for them and they got the deportation hold. They thought they were going to be able to become a U.S. citizen or resident. And before that happened, the court ordered them deported. That's a bad blow to them. It sucks that, you know, they were given this dream or idea. They thought they could become a U.S. citizen, and then they weren't able to do it. That sucks, but it isn't wrong. It's the way the system works. But I can tell you, with these people here in Alabama, man, these people are getting a raw deal. Martin Luther King said, referring to the state of Alabama, that they're savages who take joy and happiness in watching other people suffer. That's the way Martin Luther King described the state of Alabama. He said that they were savages who took joy and pleasure in homicide and murder. And the state of Alabama, for a lot of people, hasn't really changed. The people of Alabama are great, generous people. Even they would agree with me that what's happening in their state isn't right. It's not that the people of Alabama are bad. The people of Alabama are good overall. The problem is that their state has been plagued with corruption. They are drunk with their own power and inebriated from the impunity that they have because of this power, and they wield their hand over the state of Alabama brutally. These are not normal arrests. These are not normal charges. Overwhelmingly, too many people in Alabama who have done absolutely nothing wrong are being put in a very messed up situation. And it's not a surprise. How many movies do we have that depict clearly the way the South is? A lot of people believe that these movies that we see that depict the South as a backwards and dangerous place are something from the 1970s. What they fail to realize is that Alabama hasn't changed and that this is still how these people get down over here. At the end of the day, people like myself who moved to the state of Alabama legally with no criminal intentions, good investments, businesses. A lot of people in Alabama wanted me there. I wanted to be there. A lot of my customers couldn't find anybody to provide the services I was providing. But I had to leave my home and my customer base in Alabama, people that needed my services and I needed their money. It was a win for me and it was a win for them. And unfortunately, it took this outside element of somebody who didn't want me there to ruin it for everybody. When you live in a place where bad people have this much power and control, it makes life miserable for the people that are trying to do things the right way. In the case of the Hispanics living in Alabama, whether they're legal or illegal, it doesn't change anything. They're unwanted. Many times people like Cubans and Puerto Ricans who have legal status in the United States assume that they're different from other Hispanics or that they're going to be treated differently from other Hispanics. But in the state of Alabama, they don't care about your legal status. To them, all Hispanics are illegal Mexicans who need to be deported. And if they can't do it legally, they're going to find a way to jam you up and make sure that you can't be there. Because it's not about legality, it's about the sentiment of hate. A sentiment that has made Alabama one of the most miserable places to exist for centuries now, and nothing's going to change anytime soon. And finally, I want to leave a message to the people of Alabama. If you live in Alabama and you're tired of dealing with these situations, I invite you to come to Florida, to my state, and be here with us and join us here. I'm not going to tell you Florida's perfect. We have our problems here, and we got hateful people here in Florida just like you do in Alabama. But the overwhelming majority of people aren't as backwards, full of hate, and dangerous as the people you're dealing with in Alabama. If you have children in Alabama and you don't want them to grow up in this environment, I invite you to consider moving to Florida. Come to Sarasota, come to Naples, come to Florida and be here with us. And don't let your children grow up in this environment to become like these people. While living in Alabama, it's a beautiful state. A lot of the people are warm, friendly, and kind and generous. They'll help a stranger depending on their race. The point being is that there's beautiful things about Alabama. The food, the sweet tea, the culture, and the people are great. They have great values. They're loyal to each other. There's great things that can be said about the people of Alabama. And if you're one of these good people in Alabama, we want you here in Florida. You would think after my experiences in Alabama that I would have hate and resentment from everybody there. But in reality, in Florida, working, I encounter people from Alabama all the time, Mississippi and Louisiana as well. And I'm glad they're here in my community. Maybe not so much the ones from Louisiana, just playing. But the point being is, I don't have a resentment for the people of Alabama. I just have some really traumatic experiences from being there because of the bad people. But every single day, week, I run into people from Alabama and the Deep South here in Florida. And I'm glad that they chose to be here with us. And they tell me the reasons why they're here and not there. And I couldn't agree more. You don't have to be ashamed of being an Alabaman. You don't have to be ashamed of your accent. Be who you are. Be happy with who you are. Feel content with who you are as an Alabamian. But come here and be with us and learn that there's another way of living that doesn't involve hate, that doesn't involve segregation. Give your family the opportunity to experience a type of life that is free to a better degree. It's not perfect, but to a much larger degree, better than what you're experiencing in Alabama. I invite you to Florida, and I hope that if you live in Alabama and you want to give your family a better future, that you consider bringing them to Florida. We have a better education system. We have considerably better safety analytics. We got warmer weather, and the people here are more open-minded. Unfortunately, our state of Florida, they're trying to turn it into Alabama. I hope that people seeing today's video recognize that what Florida's becoming, Alabama, isn't something that even the people in Alabama want their state to be. A lot of people in Alabama are aware of what I'm talking about. They know that their state's plagued with these problems, but they're afraid to speak out because they know what happens to those who speak out against a regime. Being born in Cuba, an authoritarian regime, I know that the first thing that you lose is your freedom of speech, your freedom to express yourself. A lot of people in Alabama know exactly what I'm talking about, but unfortunately in the society that they live in, expressing their sentiments or their discontent with something puts them in danger. They don't really have a choice but to play into the system. It's exactly what my family members in Cuba did for many years, where they pretended to be communists and pretended to support communism when deep down they knew it was a piece of garbage, but they knew it benefited them to pretend like they believed in a system when they knew the system didn't work, simply because it benefited them monetarily or made their life more comfortable. In the world we live in today, when people speak up and express their real feelings about things, they expose themselves to the repercussion of people and hate. But at the end of the day, the United States, the first thing that was written down in the Constitution was the freedom of speech. But unfortunately, many people in the United States don't believe in the Constitution. They believe in oppressive and totalitarian mindsets that, after all, is what the United States mostly stands against. During the potato famine, when people from Ireland and Europe came to the United States, do you think that was a legal migration? Do you think the Irish were allowed to leave Ireland during that time period? They're no different than the people from Latin America today. There's people who risked their lives, disobeyed the law to ensure that their family and their next generation would have something better for them. They fought for something better, for a better future for their family. In the case of the Irish people, they're no different than the Latin Americans. But we see even with Hispanics, first generation Hispanics that are born here and are US citizens, they already think that they're better than people who are here illegally. But they forget that when you go to Alabama, when you go to Mississippi, when you go to the Deep South, they don't care about your legal status. They know who you really are. A lot of Hispanics have fooled themselves to believe that they're somewhat more American than somebody who's here illegally. If you move to Alabama, you'll eventually find out that it doesn't matter if you were born here. It doesn't matter if you're legal or illegal. To them, you're an illegal Mexican. Puerto Ricans, for example, and Cubans believe because they're white and they're US citizens that they're somehow better than other immigrants. Move to Alabama and have somebody tell you in your face you're an illegal Mexican invading our country. You'll find out eventually. Alabama taught me one beautiful thing, that no matter how hard I try and what bumper sticker I put in my car, or what color hat I put on my head, or how I vote, or how Americanized I become, or if I drive a big pickup truck or do anything to make myself look and feel American, at the end of the day, to them, I'm never going to be American. So instead of trying to be somebody you're not, stop trying to pretend like you're somebody you're not. Stop trying to fit a mold you're never going to fit. Be who you are. Be content with who you are. And don't let anybody try to let you become them. Be who you are. Be happy with who you are. And don't try to fit a mold of people who at the end of the day are never going to accept you for who you are. So since they're never going to accept you for being who you are, don't try to pretend to be nothing but what you are. Don't try to think that you're more American than you are. Don't think because now you're a U.S. citizen that you're more American than people who are here illegally. You're no different than them. And in fact, you're no different from Americans either because they're the descendants of immigrants themselves. That's one beautiful thing that Alabama taught me, that at the end of the day, we're all the same. And if it wasn't for all the hardships that I endured in Alabama and the lessons that I learned, I wouldn't be in a position today that I am to be able to help other people if they're only willing to listen. However, the sad reality is that a lot of people don't believe something until it happens to them.